The air hung heavy, thick with unspoken truths and the stench of past transgressions. Joe Keller, a seemingly ordinary man, carried a terrible secret. During the war, he prioritized profit over lives. Faulty airplane parts shipped from his factory caused the deaths of 21 pilots, young men fighting for their country, betrayed by greed. Joe's partner, Steve Deaver, took the fall. He went to prison for the crime. Joe maintained his innocence. He returned to his family and his business, a free man. But freedom, it seemed, came with a hefty price. The price of guilt, the price of a shattered conscience. The shadow of those 21 deaths loomed large over the Keller family. Their once happy home became a prison of secrets. Laughter died in their throats, replaced by a suffocating silence. Joe's wife, Kate, clung to the hope that their son, Larry, was still alive. Larry, a pilot himself, had gone missing in action years ago. Kate refused to believe he was dead. It was her way of coping, her way of punishing Joe. She knew, deep in her heart, that he was responsible for Larry's death, just like the other 21. The fallen apple tree in their backyard served as a constant reminder of their loss. Planted in Larry's memory, it mirrored the fractured state of the Keller family, broken, just like their dreams, their lives. The play opens on a bright Sunday morning, the illusion of normalcy. But beneath the surface, tensions simmer. A storm had raged the night before, felling the memorial tree, a symbol, perhaps, of the storm brewing within the Keller household. Chris, Larry's brother, wants to move on. He plans to marry Ann Deaver, his late brother's sweetheart. This decision ignites his mother's fury. Kate sees Ann as a living reminder of Larry, a painful reminder of Joe's betrayal. Chris, however, is determined to find happiness. He is haunted by survivor's guilt. He can't shake the feeling that he should have died instead of his brother. He sees Anne as a beacon of hope, a chance at a normal life. But their love is a threat to Kate. She clings to the past, to the memory of Larry. She refuses to let go. Her grief has morphed into a suffocating obsession. She manipulates and controls, desperate to keep her family together, even if it means clinging to a lie. George Deaver, Ann's brother, arrives unexpectedly. He brings with him the truth that Joe has tried so hard to bury. George had visited his father in prison. He had learned the truth about Joe's treachery. George is furious. He accuses Joe of murdering his brother and the other pilots. He threatens to expose him. The truth, once buried deep, begins to surface, like a crack in a dam, threatening to unleash a torrent of pain and guilt. Joe tries to defend himself. He claims he was only thinking of his family. He did what he had to do to protect them, but his words ring hollow. Even Chris, his own son, begins to doubt him. Section 4. Love and Denial. Chris represents a new generation, a generation that values integrity and accountability. He is torn between his love for his father and his sense of justice. He struggles to reconcile his father's actions with the man he always believed him to be. Anne, caught in the crossfire, just wants to move on. She loves Chris and believes in his inherent goodness, but she is also haunted by her own family's tragedy. The weight of the past threatens to crush their fragile hope for the future. The fallen tree becomes a tangible symbol of Joe's broken promises. He had promised Larry that he would take care of Anne. Now his actions have shattered that promise. Just as the storm shattered the tree, the past continues to cast a long shadow on the present. Section 5. Truth's bitter revelation. The tension builds, accusations fly. Joe, backed into a corner, lashes out. He tries to justify his actions, claiming that everyone was doing it, that it was war, and in war there are casualties. But his words are met with disgust. Chris, horrified by his father's lack of remorse, finally sees him for who he truly is, a man who valued profit over human life, a man who was willing to sacrifice his own son for his own selfish desires. The truth, like a bitter pill, is hard to swallow, but it is the only path to redemption. Chris, heartbroken and disillusioned, confronts his father. He accuses him of killing Larry, not directly, but through his actions. Section 6. The weight of guilt. Joe, finally understanding the gravity of his sins, crumbles. He confesses. He admits that he knew the parts were faulty. He admits that he sent them anyway. He admits that he's responsible for the deaths of 21 pilots. including his own son. The weight of his guilt carried for so long becomes unbearable. He had built his life on a lie that had destroyed his family, a lie that had cost him his soul. The fallen tree, once a symbol of loss, now represents the destruction that Joe's actions have wrought. His greed and his lies have poisoned his family, leaving them broken and lost. He realizes with agonizing clarity that there is no escaping his past. Section 7. The Price of Morality. The play culminates in a tragic climax. Kate, desperate to protect her husband, reveals that Larry had sent a letter before his death, a letter that would expose Joe's crime. Anne, heartbroken and betrayed, produces the letter. She reads it aloud. Larry, racked with guilt over his father's actions, had chosen to end his own life. He couldn't live with the knowledge that his father had profited from the deaths of his fellow soldiers. Joe, shattered by the revelation, finally understands the true cost of his actions. He had not only killed his sons, but he had destroyed his family. He had sacrificed his morality for a dream that had turned into a nightmare. In the end, Joe chooses to take his own life. It is a final act of cowardice, an attempt to escape the consequences of his actions, but it is also an admission of guilt, a recognition that he is beyond redemption.